happy, I guess, call it summer solstice day to everybody. Welcome. Come on in, join us, sit around the campfire as we bring you today's episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network. Here at Center Ice, I am Nick, and joining me as always is Brit. How are you, Brit?
I'm good. I'm heat stroke Brit. I was shutting my camera off to go move that fan over so you guys didn't have to witness me actually dying. We just got back from a baseball game and it's like 95. And I am always reminded this time of year why I am a winter sports lady. I can't be a full-blown baseball mom.
Oh, there you go. It's got up to about 104 was yesterday here in Utah County here at the kind of Provo area. Say that again.
Are you guys humid? Like
no, ours
Utah
is still
feels
dry.
like so many. Okay, I dealt with Vegas hot. It's so humid here right now, and that's what really kills me. Like honestly, I'm so awful as a human when it's hot. I'm just angry.
We're in this weird bubble. So like us, Idaho, most of Washington, Oregon, California, Northern California, and Nevada, we live in this thing because the Rocky Mountains come and just block any potential resting humidity, and it pushes over and falls into the Denver area, or it just never comes our way. So yeah,
like somewhere Mitch Marner might thrive.
No kidding. A lot of talk around him not living.
We do have to have that eventually. We have to have your Utah fan talk just for the sake of maybe. They have a lot to talk about this year, it feels like.
They have a lot of potential bachelors that might be heading their way, and they could be a whole new team that the Arizona Coyotes just unfortunately could not,
The bottom feeders are dying fast, it feels like, especially if the Sharks.
It's eaten or eaten. Absolutely. Yep. But given today, there was a lot that we needed to cover as far as even Avalanche world is concerned. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do this on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, Britt. So, Stanley Cup came and gone in that span. Last I was able to speak of it a couple of weeks ago. Edmonton had the 1-game advantage. Well, Florida has done it in 6 back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. What was your takeaway, Britt? What's the feeling? What's the emotion? Vibes are high, vibes are low.
When you step back and first of all, I got it. This is always my first take on everything is stop blaming the goalie. It's part of it, but the goalies and the refs are a hot topic. But I think my biggest takeaway from this is like it's truly insane when you step back and you're not watching these intense games. When you look team for team, even in the Stanley Cup final, technically the 2 best teams that were able to put up next to each other, how big the gap was in this one. Even it should have only been 5 games. I would have rather it had gone to 7 just because it's fun. But and it's hard to tell if the Panthers are that good or if the Oilers are really that shaky. I mean,
that almost good.
I'm almost feeling pity for the Oilers, which I love McDavid, and that's why I needed them to lose is because it is a travesty to the sport if he doesn't get a cup, but I want him to get it anywhere but Edmonton. And judging by those interviews yesterday, it sounds like there's a greater than 0% chance that happens. And I feel for him. Some other good things, Evander Kane's career may be over. Maybe never have to look at Corey Perry again.
The Corey Perry effect. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Stu Skinner's going to be yeeted out of there and probably do perfectly fine somewhere else.
Most likely.
Edmonton, I don't really hate their team. Their fans are just volatile to me, and I don't know. But sorry, I haven't gotten to talk Stanley Cup, so I'll wrap it up, and then we should just do a blib blab at some point, or I'll just call you because you, me, Allie, Michael, we can hash over. There was so much more to this Stanley Cup emotion, just like content, than the Panthers, I think, are truly the closest thing to a dynasty we have seen and we will see. There's something about that team that is so incredible and so not purchasable. It doesn't matter the cap, the money, the talent. And my dad and I were talking about it, and I think it's just because they have found a group that truly loves the game of hockey. And that's that stupid buy-in concept. They've all bought in so hard. I don't think even the Avs 2022 team, which I've said I think is the greatest assembly of a team in the modern era, I don't think that they were bonded the way you see the Panthers like interact as a bonded group. You know what I mean? And it's having fun. It's freaking loving hockey. And that's, I don't know. I'm so emotional. I'm just so glad that I like Matt Tkachuk, because I would have to just leave the internet if I hated him. And I did hate him. And I just watching the Stanley Cup is one of my favorite times of year, because seeing grown men cry and just act like children out of pure joy is, honest to God, one of my greatest joys in life. Like the way Tkachuk jumps like a little girl, and like when you see Marchand rubbing his daughter's hair out of her face, like seeing those really raw moments that we don't get from many NHL players. Granted, the Panthers seem to be the most open to their content machines. Paul Maurice, my husband knows that if Paul Maurice comes tomorrow and asks me to marry him, I will have to leave, because I just love him so much. I have so much respect for him, and I think he's the perfect coach that lets them stay loose to where they can hit another level, but he keeps them in line just enough. Like and then also I still can't stop my stomach from churning. You heard Matthew Tkachuk say that his adductor was torn from the bone, right? Through this series.
Yeah.
Oh my, I just can't. And Barkov's hand, I mean, I don't know. It's just so special no matter who wins, but it feels so much better when it's who you really, it's the only team I was down to have win other than like the Senators if the Avs didn't win. So watching them, a lot of people get something that they've worked hard for. And I know that that's Corey Perry in a nutshell, but he doesn't deserve it. But like, to bring one more point of, if anybody didn't notice, they handed the cup off. This is another testament to the Panthers are just different. They handed the cup off. It always goes to the captain. And it usually goes to the special vet. And then it usually goes to the all-stars. And then it's not like the excitement fades, but like it does fizzle a little bit. They handed it to all of the scratches, the no-names, the people that have never had one before. They handed the cup to them before even like Marchand. I mean, Marchand has literally, I don't know if is there a human being on this earth who has changed his stock more than Brad Marchand has in the last 3 months?
Yeah. No
People
kidding.
are like on the internet saying, I don't know how this could happen. I hated him so much until that. For me, it was when he took that phone down the hall. And I told my dad, I kept telling him, and my dad just hated him. They didn't like him. They won't do it. And then through these playoffs, they're like, I think I love him. I'm like, I know, it's so bad. And that's, it either super solidified your hatred to where it's like a burning, kind of jealous. Toronto wants him. Like, that's how much things have changed. Toronto they know they need him. I don't know. I just get so giddy, but I'll just go talk into a blank screen about it, because this was one of the most exciting cup wins and just some of the best stories I think the NHL has ever seen. It feels like a turning point in the type of people that are glorified in the sport.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Now, no, you're fine. You needed to talk. You needed to talk about it. So, my opinion was this. So last that I hopped on and gave my 2 cents. I did say Edmonton in 7, because that first game, it looked like Edmonton kind of figured some stuff out, and that was the hard part too. It's a 1 game sample size, and that's the hardest part, is you can never judge a series based off the first game, and that hard concrete proof smacked me in the face once again. But you're exactly right. In that game too, with Marchand being the overtime hero, Game 3 where there were maybe 2 players left on the ice because the rest had penalized 10-minute misconducts. That was just a horrible game. But then games 4, 5, and 6 were all just so great, that, it was a very, very good series, though the more the time went on, the more predictable it seemed the game was, or the series was going to go in the other direction that I was, I had favored.
They haven't won. The Oilers are hungry. They came back last year. No one's writing them off.
Exactly.
It felt like it's Connor McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah. And
it felt
every
inevitable.
game,
Who was net?
exactly. And every game was good, except for maybe that game 3. But then again, every series has one of those kind of dud games. But overall, I thought it made for a very good series. A lot of different storylines as far as it's the rematch. We have one that's trying to defend versus one that's trying to pry it back out. The list goes on.
And mostly ones that are good for the NHL. Like, it feels like this whole cup run was good for the NHL. Like, the really 100% positive storylines. Yep. Even subtracting the Avs time in while they had the Canada trial during the first round of the playoffs is wild. But
and here we are, maybe less than a week removed, and next week's the NHL draft. Like that, so hockey world is still going to keep operating for the next few weeks at least. We've already got the preseason schedule, and so the schedule's going to come out. So we'll talk about that as well. I mean, I don't know about you, Brit, but this particular offseason feels like it's going to go by a lot quicker than a lot of people think. And that's coming from us being eliminated in that first round, but there was still so much to still discuss. So anyway, getting off topic a little bit, my final thoughts on the Stanley Cup final were it was good, right? It's always nice to see Lord Stanley get lifted.
It can be without our team. Is that the... I'm getting a book, so I'm getting my notebook so I can write a list of some questions that I want to pose before. I've already decided that you're going to join me for just a blabber pod at some point.
Not a problem.
But we'll post them beforehand, but as they come up. So.
Very good. But like I said, it's always good to see the Stanley Cup lifted. It's always nice to see just the joy and emotion, especially for like people like Barkov or Ekblad, the Bobrovsky, the repeat winners. Yeah. That it's still to them, it's like winning it for the first time. So congratulations to the Florida Panthers organization. Exactly. Yep.
Do you think?
Congratulations to them.
Sorry, I'll let it lead into that because it goes into apps for me because it's something I've been stewing over.
There you go. But speaking of Avs, and we're kind of going to jump topics here. I do want to get your thoughts from a couple of weeks ago. It was almost pretty fresh news at that point. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Brock Nelson extension that got done. 3 years, $7.5 million AAV. What are your thoughts? Do you think that solves an issue? Do you think it partially solves it? What are your kind of thoughts on retaining Brock Nelson when a lot of people thought he might have even had 1 foot out the door?
Yeah, I don't. What did you say what the contract was exactly? 3 years,
3 years, $7.5 million. Yep.
It's hard to, and I'm generally someone who has like parts of hockey that I can excuse people for, like everything a goalie does until the second it's literally time to burn their stall, like Georgia. But like with Nelson, the more that I've sat on or not playing and being eliminated, I just don't think that what we saw like was Brock Nelson even close to being what they expect out of him. And when you take a look, McFarland and Sakic have made mistakes on contracts. We've got the Johansson shit, but they haven't made a mistake that I can name that cost this much money. Generally, if they're going to pay this much money, they know what they're getting and they're usually right. Usually the stuff that they've flubbed has been cheaper project gambles. Is that the right word? So even though, and I'll be honest, the Islanders do nothing for me other than their outdoor stuff and their occasional jersey stuff. They're so far from being, they're definitely one of the least teams that I put like any effort into knowing. And I haven't watched a ton of him. Like, even if you go watch his highlights, you don't get that like probably parasocial relationship that you get with a lot of players. But I'm going into the season excited about it because even if it doesn't go great, it's 3 years. And truly, was he not probably the best Avs appropriate option on the market? We don't go after, like, we want Sam Bennett, but that's just kind of not our, you know what I mean? They're not too risky. They don't overspend on guys with 1 year highs. They're not generally looked. So I'm hesitantly excited. Like, I do trust though that they don't mess around with $7.5 million contracts. Is in my biggest takeaway is like, okay, so what does that mean we're losing? Because we didn't have 7.5 million in the bank when Gabe came back, so we certainly don't now. It's gonna mean, but it's so nice to actually know where the money's going to be able to, you know, last summer was torture.
No questions are raised, no nothing.
Yeah. So seeing them act immediately because they don't have like $15 million in limbo between Gabe and Nuke is beautiful. It's nice to see that they're not as lazy, you know, as last year. We're like, do something, but when they have the money, they will. So, and Brock Nelson was he top 3 on the market for
and
like
mid-season trades? He was definitely up there. 100% he was, yes. But my kind of thought was this, Brit. The more I was kind of mulling it over, the more I was like, you know, Nazem Kadri was making that.
Yeah, I just
you know what I mean?
I love Nas on a personal level, but I just still feel like they probably made the right choice. Now, I just feel like we would have grown to hate him because I don't think he would have performed even close to what we would have expected out of him, and he would have become our contract scapegoat. Him and Sammy G, we'd just be talking about those contracts. Yeah, and I'm glad to not have to have that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now here's the difficult part is the Avalanche with that signing and including Gabe Landeskog have $1.2 million of projected cap space. Your
and that's
three. Say that again.
Is that with the raise, right?
This season, how at least per Puckpedia, how they're counting that down, including Landeskog and throwing in the Brock Nelson. You have 1.2 million in cap space. You have currently the highest use of money in the NHL, the smallest cap space, right? You still have people floating out there such as Jonathan Drouin, and you are missing 4 total spots to fill out the roster. So the question is going to be, are you going to just fill out those others with just potential prospects? Does that mean Charlie Coyle becomes kind of a more cap casualty? So we get someone in that third C position. You're going to have to get creative with how this looks. As much as I would like to keep Coyle and see how he does for a full season, for a third line center, he's 5.5, right? Yeah. So that's going to be my question is, I'm happy with Brock Nelson's play. I think he plays up to that $7.5 million range. You've seen, he plays for Team USA, all that good kind of stuff. You know what he will bring to the table. And given the fact that he had, I can't remember how it was, like 17 points in 17 games or something like that with the back half of that season. And then obviously postseason, he kind of just disappeared. But then again, a bunch of them did.
Everyone
I think
did.
he's going to be fine, you know? So
I do too. It felt like if we had been able to do everything that we did right around when Brock Nelson came to us, like 3 weeks earlier, we just didn't quite hit the stride at the right time. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making excuses.
No, and that's the thing is a lot of people that I have seen or I have talked to were kind of up in arms about it, saying Brock Nelson did nothing for you. You're going to sign and extend him. It's like, no, if you look at the numbers, he was almost a point per game player in that second half of the season. He was going to be fine. He's going
to be a quiet. He's not loud in any way. Exactly. Which is, I thought that he was unhappy at the end of the season or just uninterested. It sounded like it was inevitable that he would go home to Minnesota and I'll hate him.
Exactly.
And then instead, we hear that smiley face boy Martin Necas is unhappy which sounds like it's fake, but it's baffling and kind of hysterical that Nelson is re-signed and Necas is supposedly unhappy.
It is strange. So is it an overpay? Is it a reach? Yeah, I would prefer to say like a 6.5. I'd feel comfortable with that because that's the kind of Val Nichushkin, and he'd put up Val Nichushkin type numbers. So I'm comfortable with that. 7.5 is a bit much, but if you're going to get the point per game,
solve the problem.
Exactly. If you're going to get the point per game production like a 2C should, then I won't complain.
Yeah.
Right. But like I said, that does bring up the whole new cap issue of you have a little over 1 million, 4 guys left. Jonathan Drouin is on the outside looking in. I bet you they want to keep him, and we definitely do. And I bet you he wants to stay, but something's got to give.
Sorry, I keep thinking I'm not frozen. I was going to ask you on text and I thought I'll wait, but do you think that it's been announced that beloved Logan O'Connor once again has to have double hip surgery? He's going to miss the majority of the first half of the season. Does that change things dramatically for our need and willingness to go reach for Drouin? I
potentially
want to believe, and I know that it's probably like a head narrative that I have, that he was willing to bend backwards after listening and knowing who his agent is. His agent's quote, like his go-to is "don't F with happy." So I genuinely believe, I mean, he took a 1-year contract after a really good year and then he got injured and hit the bed, and the Avs have to, like, it is a give and take where hopefully the Avs can appreciate that was very friendly for him to take a 1-year contract. But I think it's a mutual. But I'm wondering if Logan O'Connor being gone makes us really look at Drouin a little bit different.
Potentially.
If he's willing to come back cheap, I mean, what can you ask for as Drouin?
And that's the hard part.
I love him as much as anyone other than his mom, but he can't
and that's the hard part.
He didn't earn a raise by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, and you're exactly right. But you've got to maybe think about who you also have surrounding that, right? Now, that being said, I believe his previous contract was $2.5 million, which you're going to have to find a way to restructure someone's contract or something in order to make this work. I feel like they would just another year, $2.5 million. I think that's totally attainable.
And something we know about him is he moves up and down the lines.
And that's exactly it. Is he can play anywhere. Here's my thing, though, is now with Landeskog back, I feel like your top 6 are completely solidified in that your top line, Necas, McKinnon, Landeskog, your second line, Lehkonen, Nichushkin, and Nelson. So he'd fit third line, obviously taking Logan O'Connor's spot. So, but you'd pair him with who? Colton and Wood, Colton and assuming you keep Coyle, right?
Which puts into question, do you think that those 6 will be there? Because you mentioned the name that I told you. It feels like Coyle. We've got guys who perform that job quite well when we didn't have a solidified. It feels like Colton and Coyle are at this point possibilities. It feels like Miles Wood is an inevitable. Getting rid of that contract. I still don't hate it. I wish people would stop like droning on about it because it being 6 years. And it's like, all you need is for one of those to hit during a window and you've got that dude like LOC when he is healthy. And you're like, how are we paying this guy $2 million? Well, it's because you're doing it for 6 years. And I just wish people were more open-minded for funky contracts.
Exactly. And that cap is jumping up 10 million every year for the next 3 years. So that 2 million is going to look like peanuts by the end of this.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like you can make it work, but something somewhere else has got to give. And if that means it's Coyle, that means it's Coyle. If that means it's Gerard, it's Gerard. Like it doesn't have to come from the forwards, but it's going to be an interesting place where the Avs are going to be next year when they have everything signed, squared away. The cap's gone up another 10. now what's the need? Is it going in and keeping Scott Wedgwood? Is it going, there's going to be a lot of what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? But I trust McFarland and Sakic to figure out and crunch the numbers and still play fine with what they have. You're just maybe going to need your depth pieces to play better than they already have. So that being said, let's kind of go ahead and
have to say this to you because I don't think you spend your time looking through a Puckpedia, but yeah. I'm looking at the active injured. And so Logan O'Connor, they released that 2 weeks ago-ish?
I believe so, yeah.
Since then, Ross Colton and Sean Behrens have been added month to month. Ross Colton with a groin injury, which that's what he had before, wasn't it? And Sean Behrens, for the love of God. I don't know if those are time. Tucker Pullman's still on there, but he's just never playing hockey again, right? That's just a contractual trade.
I think so.
Okay. That messes things up badly if Ross Colton is not healthy to trade. That's kind of a scary.
Yeah.
Unless he's LTIR for a year.
Yeah. So again, a lot of question marks still to be had. But that being said, the Avs may not be done making moves. I mean, there's still names that were floating out there, like Jonathan Toews, who now has verbally kind of committed to sign with the Winnipeg Jets on July 1. But the fact that the Avs were still in that discussion, it still says that they could still be hunting for more game.
Oh, is my camera still not on?
No. Oh, there you go. There you go. So what do you think, Britt? Do you think the Avs are still out there to maybe get some names, make some trades? It would have to be probably by way of trade.
I think there's going to be one trade that is big and hurts. I know that the majority of the loud, obnoxious fan base on Facebook or Twitter thinks that it's going to be Sam Girard. But I think that the Avs have proven to us that they value him more than your average asshole sitting at a keyboard. I've kind of mentally settled on Colton and or Coyle, depending on what options open for us to receive, as much as Coyle would be an overpaid bottom six. The teams that win cups are the teams we had the best fourth line when we won the cup. So the thought of, for once in the last 3 years, being able to roll 4 lines and not just immediately having to jump to Mac double shifting, every other shift, the true testament to our team's overall health and excellence is being able to trust them all. And it felt like we were so close to a point before the inevitable down, that bad game against Dallas, where, I mean, Drury, who else? We just had a couple of guys that just made it feel like I'm not scared when Mac's not out there. So it kind of makes me wonder if they're willing to overpay for Coyle to stay. But it's also, it would hurt a lot less for them to get rid of him than it would Sam Girard. And they know what they have in Sam Girard. Sam Girard was one of our best players in the playoffs. Fight me.
Yeah. So going to be an interesting.
My other one. I just don't know. I know how
versus the world
is, but the injuries, I just don't know when you just say we can't do it anymore. And maybe that's at the deadline. But Manson is a lot of the talk because when he's injured, it's so loud how bad he is, even though when he, in the 2022, in the Stanley Cup win year, people have completely blacked out from their brains how absolutely incredible he was. I just tell people, go watch him fighting Jamie Benn. It'll come back. We loved Josh Manson, but it feels like we don't get enough of him to justify. Is that $4 million? Because that's what I totally buy into, the concept that the $3 to $5 million are the players that kill teams. And it's kind of where Ross Colton is probably the highest value with the biggest payoff for cap space. But God, I hope he's healthy, dude.
No kidding.
If he is injured, that may make choices change simply because he doesn't have the market value.
Yeah. And speaking of market, though, there have been some active people or active teams within our division Dallas is the other team that is strapped for cash right behind the Avs, and that includes the moves they have recently made as early or as late as today, at the time of this recording.
Yeah,
signing, or should I say extending, not only Nils Lundqvist, not only Maverick Bork, but Matt Duchene as well, right? Yeah. Now, that being said, they have 18 of the 23 spots, more with only a little over $2 million. Something there has definitely got to give. Now, bring this up. Well, the Stars are the ones who beat, right? That could mean potentially you may not have to face them in the playoffs if you do well enough, potentially, this next coming season. But it also means that you could have an upper hand in another potential trade. Now, that being said, I know a lot of teams don't want to trade interdivision. They kind of keep it, outside. So if it's like your Central, they trade with Pacific at the very least, stuff like that.
Yeah, you notice they didn't keep Marchment nearby.
Exactly, right? Marchment being a casualty where they shipped him right off to Seattle and said, go get penalty minutes somewhere else.
They don't want to face that.
And so here's the thing is, can you have some kind of a pot sweetener to land a Charlie Coyle-esque player for much cheaper, where they maybe retain some salary or something to that extent? My gut feeling is probably no. But I did want to kind of throw a floater out there just to see kind of what people may think. Yeah. Do you believe the Avs have something that they could maybe prep and say, hey, Dallas, you and I are both strapped for cash. How about this? And then maybe
just to, throw this out there to keep in mind is that Avs fans need to be prepared to see somebody that they love, like Ross Colton, get traded for a bottom six, almost nobody, and some picks, and have the state of mind that these picks are not because we want to draft people. I love, and I'm fully on board with that, Tampa mentality, screw them picks. The picks are simply assets to utilize. I prefer them spending money at the deadline because this free agency, whatever you can save until the deadline next year, this free agency, it's just not the top and bottom. You've got Marner, and then so just be prepared to see and be okay with guys like Ross Colton might get traded away for nothing. And I can already hear we lost the Mikko trade and now we trade him for 2 second-round picks, but the 2 second-round picks might be Arturi Lehkonen at the deadline. So I just had to say that because I can't handle how pitiful Avs fans are sometimes on Twitter. I want to think we're better, but I don't think we are. I think Dallas has us beat, but Avs fans are pretty awful.
And that's the thing is, the better you are as far as competing for cups, the more your cap is going to become an issue, right? Yeah. Dallas, us at Colorado, and now the Florida Panthers are going to find themselves in this situation where, for example, I believe, and with the Florida Panthers organization, I believe Aaron Ekblad is on the outside looking in, despite being there his whole career. Just because Sam Bennett, Conn Smythe winner, he's going to be a free agent. He's going to command a lot of money. He wants to come back. Brad Marchand, he's going to command a lot of money. He's going to want to come back. Florida wants him, but now you have a third in Aaron Ekblad that
he was out all last year, wasn't he?
Most of
was it? So I heard, I think it was from Friedman, said that Ekblad was out the entire year until the playoffs. The Oilers had Kane. They had a couple. They're currently going through the process with the GM thing about changing the LTIR process to close the loophole.
Which hopefully they do. No kidding.
Avs and the Oilers who were flagged for, abusing the LTIR process. And this burning inside me that Gabe Landeskog being compared to an LTIR loophole compared to Evander Kane, you know what I mean? Oh, it disgusts
me. The Mark Stone,
that's something that might change a lot of things to come because they're discussing yeah, like if they change it so that if you're not on the roster when the playoffs start, then you don't play at all, people will riot. Because could you imagine someone like Landeskog, if you have 3 of your top players who genuinely can't play for the first 2 games, into the first 2 games or into the first series even, not able to play for the rest of the series because you physically can't put them on the roster because you won't be able to put a team on the ice? That's insanity. Like, and I don't know if it has to be like a portion of the season, but that's going to probably change a lot of stuff in our talks. And I think the GM meetings, they wrap up like the end of next week, right?
The end of next week is what I believe it is. And that's the interesting thing, though, is the easiest fix is going to be the one that a lot of people are going to complain about, and that is the cap just stays through until you are run to the ground. You know what I mean? Regular season, postseason, cap doesn't change, right? Which that takes care of the whole, that closes the loophole. That's the simple solution.
It also encourages players to play unhealthy and to never
fully. And that's going to be that's a side effect of what it's exactly right. It's going to be one of those, well, you're not going to have a fully capable team. A lot of people are going to be like, well, that's why they beat us. If we had so-and-so playing in the playoffs, we would have beat you. And well, guess what? That's kind of how the course is going to work. You know, you have to play with what you have. A lot of people aren't going to like it. But there could be some type of rule that says, hey, if he plays in the regular season or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I just pray to God there's got to be something reasonable. Those guys make way more money to figure it out. Something reasonable that, I mean, the way it is right now is hard to abuse. They need to just make it a little bit harder. Maybe something more with like the medical assessments to stay on LTIR. But the way it is right now is so that we can maintain the max like competition, even when teams have really shitty years, like where Colorado was the year after the Cup year. It felt like a joke. I mean, if you go back to our podcast, can you pull like word clouds from our podcast and see how many times we use the word injured and like
out for 6 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, and if we hadn't been able to utilize that simply to just stay cap compliant with it, I mean, we would have been icing the Eagles. We may have run out of Eagles. The ultimate intention is so that you can remain competitive and limp through. Unfortunately, Vegas ain't no dummy. And honestly, Tampa has been the biggest abuser of it. And it hasn't done them much help. I don't know.
Yeah. So
the tax stuff and the LTIR stuff may drastically change our view on the conversations within the next 2 weeks.
Potentially, you know. So, and that's the other thing is I think of last season where Mark Stone, you know, the LTIR hero, comes sweeping into the, you know, returning back to form, right? Game 1 of the postseason, and they lost.
Yeah.
So it also kind of pulling for the other team here. It could mean that, listen, it didn't help us.
Yeah.
So why change it? You know,
I mean, it seldomly will line up perfectly that it is solely the reason that it worked. And honestly, Kucherov might be the biggest example. Like, it's hard to even say, and I guess I just don't like Mark Stone or appreciate him probably as much as I should as a hockey person.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Mark Stone's effectiveness is nearly as, I don't know. I don't think it's
not as impactful as something like a Kucherov, where he is your guy.
And his contract was so high that they were able to use so much. I would love to go look into what the dollar amounts every year have been team to team.
Yeah. So it'll definitely be interesting to see kind of how this GM and league meeting is going to go. Obviously, this is going to be one issue that's going to be addressed without question. It's just going to be a question of what's their response. You know, what's the answer going to be? How is the rest of the league going to respond going forward?
Yeah.
But
we're absolutely so we're used to just talking about it, making up scenarios, and then none of them happening at all.
That's exactly right. But I did want to get on to one more thing. Obviously, the Olympic rosters being released.
Yes.
Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, no surprise. But they threw Gabe Landeskog on the squad. Now, first of all, isn't that great? Wonderful.
Yeah.
But my question is going to be kind of with the roster looking like it is. I'm mostly focused on that top six, Brit, with Landeskog and now Natchez and Nelson.
Yeah.
Do you think that the start of next season, just from those six alone, is going to be different than what was going on at the beginning of this last season, where players were injured, Georgiev and all that kind of stuff going down, players just crap in the bed, terrible start.
So, do we have any more topics left? Because I wanted to save, I have what I need to throw out. It leads directly into my final take on the Avs.
Have at it.
Going into next year, I've been talking it through, and my dad is my poor family group chat. I talk to myself in there so much, but I finally decided today that this year is a prove it year. To me, it tells us everything about Nathan MacKinnon, his true ability to be considered. We all know he's elite, he's generational, but are you McDavid level? It says a lot about McFarland, Joe Sakic. We're going to learn a lot. Is Makar truly one of the best, if not the best defenseman to live? This year to me there's no freaking excuses. You've got a goalie. You're going in relatively healthy. All of the Nuke is here. Gabe is here. There's nothing. And that's what I said in the playoffs. But I'm giving them a pass now that the last year up until that point was hard. And the runway was weird for them. But this year is the final, who are you? And to me, it's just going to solidify a lot of legacies, all the way from legacy down to do you even belong in the NHL type stuff. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm taking a lot away from how this year goes, because can you think of any excuse left? We have sold the farm. We have solved the problems.
Well, at this point, there's only one problem that the Avs just cannot seem to get away from, and that is injuries. Right. But that's a natural course of hockey, though, right? So as far as other things that we can control, no, I don't think so.
We should be stabilized enough to roll through your average team injury stuff. And something that the Panthers have really opened my eyes to is, at any point, did you ever feel that Avs locker room had the love or excitement or joy or true bond that you've seen from the Panthers in the last 3 days? It's not child is named MacKinnon, but I'm starting to just have this creeping feeling that MacKinnon may be too hard for a lot of people to succeed with. And I don't know. There's just a fine line, and I'm praying to God that with Gabe back, that's his the stabilizing factor, because the year we won the cup,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Was I feel like with Gabe there, there's not that sudden leadership need or take chargeness of the locker room that Gabe's
gone and added on struggles.
Exactly.
Especially goalie struggles. I cannot imagine playing goalie for that man, but there is nothing left for him to feel out of control. You know what I mean? There's just such a fine line for guys like MacKinnon, where it doesn't matter how good you are if you're ruining the room. And I've just kind of wondered if he hasn't been able to control himself and it's ruined the room. That's the kind of thing that scared me. And
potentially,
I love MacKinnon. It's not like I'm some fan saying he's a toxic asshole, but sometimes you look at your own kid and say, we gotta fix some stuff. And that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to see him find a healthy happiness in hockey again, because you didn't see joy in the Avs the way that you see it in the Panthers. And I think that's the difference. Loving hockey.
And that was kind of one thing I was going to even bring up is I feel like the start of this season is going to be different than what we've had for the last three, simply because Gabe Landeskog is there. Now, whether he's the same guy he was back in the Cup year, remains to be seen as far as play. But the fact that he's going to be out there on the ice, commanding attention, commanding time, and keeping the locker room together, he's the kind of guy you need, where he knows how to control the kind of raging bull side, as it were, with Nathan MacKinnon, but also keep the rest of the locker room sane, as it were, as well. So I feel like the start of next season, again, early prediction, I feel like the start of next season is going to go by much, much better because of Landeskog being there and the experience that Nelson brings, and the fact that Nichushkin's still going to be there. And, so I'm hopeful. I'm pretty optimistic about it, but I could definitely see why you have your, cause for concern, because you didn't have that for 3 seasons, and it takes a toll on the body, or on the mind.
It just feels like we're far enough from the cup, and I'll just ask it, but don't answer it. I'm going to post a list of my questions that I want people to think about. But something that I've really been thinking about is, if next year we have a first round exit or a quick second round fizzle out, is it time to consider a fire sale? Are we looking at Toronto and thinking, do we need to get, and I hate thinking about it, but it feels like at this point, Makar is more integral to the association than MacKinnon. Do we have to think, would we trade MacKinnon for this? Or, you know what I mean? Is it time for, because you don't get many years of this.
Yeah.
So think about it. Is next year fire sale time? Like, what could go wrong that's excusable?
Potentially. My quick answer is I'm still of the opinion that our cup window is very much open, so I'm not kind of anywhere near that panic button, so to speak.
Makar's peak, and he's going to peak late. So Makar's peak is what I view.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know, everyone, what you think. What is the Avs what are they going to look like in 2 to 3 seasons? Are we going to look completely different? Are we going to build up assets because the cap continues to grow? What's the window like? Let us know in the comments or DM us, whatever you feel. But that is kind of everything that I wanted to talk about. Again, shorter episode today, but we got the main concerns out of the way and kind of the foreseeable future, so to speak, out of the way. I'm confident that this team is going to turn around. Playoffs, I still think, is not going to be an issue. It's just going to be what you're going to do, not only throughout the regular season, where you finish in that regular season, but it's going to be what type of team you're bringing into the postseason. That's kind of my expectation for this upcoming 25-26 season, and we'll just kind of have to see. Next week, Britt, obviously the draft's coming up. The Avalanche have a grand total of, I think, 2 picks, and they're like 5th and 6th round, and they might not even be there. So to be completely honest, I don't think we're going to cover a lot of the draft.
No,
we still will.
It's not an exciting draft even outside of us. I mean, last year was so exciting, and then we've got Gavin McKenna coming up next year. Does he enter the draft?
The only exciting part that I have is San Jose picks at 2 and Utah picks at 4. So that's all personal, though.
Have we discussed that the Islanders have the first round pick?
How about that? Isn't that crazy?
Unreal.
That's, you know what that is, right? That's them being rewarded for having their team being scored on for Ovechkin's record-breaking goal.
But the only thing the draft is good for with the Avs is they, that they're like they're just slinking around doing stuff because they trade picks. I'll say it over and over again. Yep. Screw them picks. We don't need them, so we might be trading some for some stuff right before that people want to use. Or we might just draft 3 goalies. Apparently when we
never know. You never know.
Oh, have we discussed that we signed that goalie to a 2-year contract?
Nabokov?
Yeah. Did we talk about that already? Okay.
I did a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. So fun and exciting times to see what the future holds in the goaltending area. So that should be fun. But yeah, let us know kind of your thoughts. And like I said, draft, a little bit of the draft next week, obviously covering that. But free agency is going to be the big topic of discussion for the next couple of weeks, both before and after. So a lot of league news rather than team news, but we'll try to obviously keep it local as best as we can. So that being said, Britt, I don't have anything else on the agenda unless there's something you wanted to add.
No, I could talk for years, so we'll just put it off right here. All I got to say, though, is I think Marchand and Bennett are done. Did you see Bennett said the video, I ain't leaving, And the amount of shit that Marchand is talking right now tells me he has no plans on going to any of those games.
I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. So, like I said, I feel like that means Ekblad is on the outside looking in, unfortunately.
Yeah, that doesn't. Okay, wait. You're Utah. If you're Utah, who's your number one? If you can have anyone, because they kind of could.
I mean, besides Mitch Marner, which is everyone's kind of cookie, you know. I think as far as the teams like addressing the need, I feel like it's Nick Ehlers. I think he's the guy that, again, well, besides him, Mikael Granlund. You don't need a ton of help other than people that not only have the playoff experience but can just score goals at a reasonable enough clip. Because Utah is very similar to Florida. They are very team centric. That locker room vibe in for the Mammoth organization is pretty impeccable. So if I were to say two players that I personally want the Mammoth to go after, it's Nick Ehlers and Mikael Granlund. Trade for him or excuse me, sign him. But that's for a whole new ball game. But it's fun to at least have some local team that has a cap space and can go and make big swings instead of being like us right now, where we're like, well, we have 1.2. How are we going to squeeze 7 out of this? You know,
Granlund is 33. I just thought he was younger than that.
Yep, small deal. Doesn't have to be big.
It's a good time to be a Utah fan. They have money and picks. They have like 4 first-round picks this year, don't they?
And not only that, but they have signed Daniel Boot and Dmitry Simashev, which are highly touted prospects who just won the Gagarin Cup there at in the KHL. They're coming over, so they're probably going to be in there.
That's fun. I think
the young core is about an average of 22, 23 years old, so their future is looking real bright. So
who is Utah pushing out if Utah and the Sharks are coming to the playoffs? Who's going out? Because it's really weird how there's not going to be any really bad teams in our division anymore.
Let alone the conference. I mean, San Jose, the way they're going to have Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini. Like I said, if Aaron Ekblad goes there, I think that's the defensive veteranship that you need. And you could be right back into things. If you all you need is Brett Burns for the year, even if he's there just on a veteran minimum, bring him back. Aaron Ekblad, maybe they go after Ehlers, or maybe they somehow land Mitch Marner. You know, who knows?
It feels like the Sharks are an elite player and a good goaltender, well thought out vet. Yeah, with that brings the know-how, a well-won vet away from like seriously threatening a lot of teams.
That's right.
And level of the playoffs. I don't know.
And the hard part about this is we did a little trivia study here. They missed the playoffs since their conception in 1991 to the COVID years. They missed 6 years of playoffs. That's it.
6.
They have missed 6 consecutive straight since the bubble.
Yeesh.
So
needless
to say, they are itching to get back in the playoffs because they have missed so many years that it's not even fun for them. So I'm hoping they take big strides as well.
I've looked at their roster a couple times and I swear to God, they could have made it this year. And now with the Ducks, if they've got a new coach, that Cronin just wasn't it. And we knew that, but the Ducks are scary too. They have a good roster.
Hiring on Quenneville, trading for Kreider, and they're front runners for Mitch Marner. So they could look completely different too. But anyway, we have all summer to talk about this, and we will, like I said, we tried to keep it short, but then babbled on. How about us? So we'll end it here, but thank you everybody for joining us on this episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast. Always appreciate your viewership and participation. Again, as a reminder, if you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and
watch the Twitter. I'm going to go through this list as I'm eating dinner and post my thought questions that I talked too long about, but I want to know what people think about these weird topics. So watch Twitter is probably where I'll post it.
And if you think Brit's going crazy, just politely put her down there and say, hey, let's...
If they've listened to 58 minutes, there's no surprises in what I'll say at this point.
There you go. So, watch for that post as well to come. So, we're excited. The offseason begins, Brit. It's going to be the longest time without hockey all year, and it's going to be difficult, especially getting into the early September stages where it's real close. But guess what? I feel like I just have the feeling that it's going to go by pretty quick.
Yeah.
So that being said, happy summer solstice, everyone. For those that longest day, so longest episode or longest babbling session for the longest day. How does that sound?
I was asking Michael when the sun went down tonight for the baseball game, hoping the sun would be down by 6 o'clock. So you can totally look at
well, it's not going to be down at least here until like 9 something, 10 something. That's insane. Anyway, that being said, have a great weekend, everyone. Happy Friday, and as always, go Avs, go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.